Hello, everyone. My name is Daniela Kruger, and I'm personal development coach, breathwork facilitator for trauma and emotional release. And today, I decided to invite a special guest with us. His name is Cecil Buckhannon. He's a health coach, certified health coach, and team leader at Dr. Joe's retreats, advanced retreats. Hi, Cecil.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being with us. So I wanted to talk about a very important topic today that I think it can be very useful for every one of us. How to face a challenging moment.
So, what can we do to help ourselves move through this in a positive way? And
Hmm.
that is sitting with the grief, and that is sitting with the sadness, and avoiding things that numb those feelings. I mean, it's very easy, right? Because we have so many ways to numb ourselves at our fingertips at this point. Because it can be
Yes.
Netflix, it can be binging TV, it can be alcohol, it can be drugs, it can be sex, it can be
Yeah.
like the list goes on and on and on, and they're all readily available on our phones, or um, so it's important to sit with it, but then get very clear on the steps that you can take and what you can control to help yourself move through it. So it's
Hmm.
really
Hmm.
important to focus on the things that you actually have control over. So I think it is important to remember that you do want to have a finite set of time for feeling that emotion. That doesn't mean the emotion's not going to keep coming up, because it possibly could. I think what's important next, though, is that we become clear on how do we want to feel in the future? How do we
Hmm.
want things to look like? How do we
To
want
set the vision.
to set the vision, right? To be very clear on what is our intention, where are we moving, where are we going? Because of course, then when the negative emotion comes up, we can do the technique that a lot of teachers teach. Dr. Joe teaches, say change. I think Wayne Dyer had a certain one that he did, but it's a great technique because then you recognize when those negative emotions come up again, because we're going through weeks and weeks of,
Of course, and they will come.
yeah, it's going to come. And that's when you recognize it, say change, and shift to that future state. And I've done this with jobs, I've done this with, bosses, relationships, friendships, whatever it is. If there's something in me, and this happens for everybody, that just comes up, right? It's a painful thing, or it's a difficult thing, and you just can't see the solution. Sometimes you don't need to know how it's going to resolve, or how it's not,
Hmm.
sometimes all the time. You don't have to know how it's going to resolve. You simply need to place your attention and your energy in that, in how you want it to feel. That's what I do now.
Yes.
I get
The
instantly clear.
solution of the whole situation.
Right. That
Hmm.
end point, that end state, and start shifting every time the negative comes up to that positive.
But I think it's important to do that after you process everything.
Yeah, I
Because
think that's
otherwise you didn't give yourself the time
right.
to do that, even though it will come again, but then you will have the awareness to shift.
Yeah.
Otherwise it will control you and it will overwhelm you.
Yes.
So one of the top key is meditating,
Yes.
breath work, of course, taking the time to process the the challenging
Yeah.
phase, and everybody has a different timing, of course, for that. um, then what would you say would be the next?
Next thing is getting clear on the intention. So, what does the future look like? What do you want to feel like in the future? Just and this doesn't. This can be long term, short term, both. It's just, instead of dwelling on what's happening and dwelling on the negative, it's shifting to the future. It's becoming very, very focused on what does that look like, and reminding yourself on a regular basis. And it doesn't have to be just for the scenario you're moving through. I find that having goals, intentions, and a clear understanding of how I want to be, feel, and act in the future is very beneficial in general, but especially when we're moving through these scenarios. So I would say that's the next one, is really getting clear on that intention and that vision for your future. And one thing, I know we're kind of shifting between the global, like kind of the big thing that's happening right now, but also talking about moving through challenging moments in general. And one thing that I think helps with the step that we talked about is, what's the lesson from this? Is really being sure that we acknowledge our role in whatever we're in. And sometimes that role might be very minimal, and sometimes that role might be huge, right? If you're in a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
there's two people. So I think it's important to really be honest with ourselves of how we contributed to whatever that scenario was, if it ended up being negative. And because normally that's what we're examining, is something that that we're facing or that's challenging. And so I think it was one thing I forgot to mention earlier, but I think it's really important to make sure that we've acknowledged and accepted our how we contributed, and
Mm-hmm.
with the understanding that we are moving into a state now, where to heal, that is a crucial part of the healing, right? That's a crucial part of the future, is acknowledging what we did or how we were. And sometimes that means we weren't engaged, right? Or we weren't doing something that we should have been, whatever that is. But it's important to acknowledge that, because then you're dropping the responsibility from external sources, which you can't control. And we mentioned, what can you control? So I think it's really key to acknowledge your responsibility, so that you can understand that it's very easy to start pointing fingers and blaming somebody else, but that doesn't help us, and that doesn't help us move through it. It doesn't help us
Of
heal.
course.
So I think it's really crucial to remember that piece of it as we move through this. Now, of course, with something this grand, it's hard for us to wrap our mind around, okay, what was my part in this, right? How did I
Yes,
contribute to a
yes,
global pandemic? Well, I mean, we're all part of a global society, a global economy, right? I mean, we're all buying things made in China. And I'm not saying this is good or bad. I'm just saying, like, that we're all part
you're
of this
part of
boat.
it.
Yeah, we are
Yes,
in it, right? So, and maybe we just didn't know any better, and this was the system in place, and this is how we lived, right? So now we get to shift that. But in most scenarios, we have a lot of active role in how it forms, how it comes to life, I would say.
yeah. So we can have more conversations about different topics, and I hope that you will be a guest very soon again.
Of course. Thank you for
Thank
having
you
me.
so much for this conversation.
You're
I hope
welcome.
that the people enjoyed it. And guys, you can follow us. You can follow me on Instagram, on social media, Facebook. You can maybe put the
Yeah, I
links
am on
and
Facebook, YouTube, Instagram primarily, and it's either Cecil Buck or Quantum Life Coaching. And I'll make sure to post the links in the description when we post this video.
yes, and you can find me on Instagram, Breathe, Heal, Grow. And of course, we will create some more content for you. Hopefully, that was helpful and that you enjoyed the video. And leave us your comments. Would be good to hear from you. And until next time. Thank you, Cecil.
Thank you. We'll see you.